So I want to thank you, first of all, for really focusing on that and working so hard on that within the legislature.
I'm glad to do it. We have made a lot of strides, but there's a lot more to do. We've got some ideas that we're carrying forward to the next session that are going to be very impactful on the bed count. So there's lots that's been done, but there's lots more to do. So we want to continue to build on that momentum.
That's perfect. Hey everybody, what's going on? Caden Cleveland here with the Oklahoma Senate, and you're joining us for another episode of OK Senate Sit Down. This week we are joined with Senator Darcy Jech. Senator, thank you so much for being here and
Glad to be here.
talk with us about the latest news from the Senate.
Of course.
So guys, what we're going to be talking about today is criminal justice reform. Senator Jech is really one of the main champions for criminal justice reform, specifically within the Senate. So really, we're just hoping to get your thoughts on all the latest advancements and maybe talk about what the future looks like. Sound all right to you?
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, hey guys, hang tight. We'll be right back with all the latest news on criminal justice reform. All right, hey guys, welcome back. As I mentioned before, we're joined this week with Senator Darcy Jech to talk about criminal justice reform. So, Senator Jech, really a lot of discussion on the topic of criminal justice reform here at the Capitol, especially within the past few years, but specifically focusing on the strides that were made this year from the state capitol, from the legislature. Can you kind of walk us through a few of the highlights that were made this year?
I'm happy to, Caden. Yeah, I think we've seen some momentum over the last few years. I think it kind of started with State Question 780.
Okay.
780 and 781. Those are state questions that were passed in 2016. Mm-hmm. Mainly what 780 did, it was to address our incarceration rate, hopefully affect the bed count in a positive way.
Yeah.
I don't think it's any secret that Oklahoma is one of the leaders in an area that we don't want to be in. That's
in
incarceration rate. I think we've been number one in women incarceration rate for years, and I think we've got there in men.
Or at least bouncing between 1 and 2 pretty consistently.
So that's not something you want to lead in, but I think we're making some strides in that area. So what 780 did, just to remind the people, 780 made some of the nonviolent drug possession crimes what were previously felonies.
Okay.
It made those misdemeanors.
Okay.
So that's the hope with those going forward is what previously was considered a felony if you were charged with certain types of crimes, that's now a misdemeanor. So instead of those people who previously were charged with felonies, those are now misdemeanors, so they're not going to have to go to prison for certain crimes. So
gotcha.
I think we've been able to build off of some of that. One of the one of the House bills that we passed this year was House Bill 1269. Mm-hmm. It's easy for me to remember that as retroactivity. So what it kind of does is what 780 identified as changing from felony crime with the appropriate sentence to a misdemeanor. Okay. So this House Bill 1269 made that retroactive. So those people that are already in prison serving crimes that are now misdemeanors, it makes those individuals able to apply for commutations or reduced sentences.
Really?
So hopefully that'll have a positive bed count. I think the number that I'm told is 630 something. It's not huge,
right?
But it is a good number.
It's still progress.
Absolutely.
Right.
That goes into effect in November, so I think that's the number that Department of Corrections has identified of individuals that might qualify for it.
So just so I'm kind of completely understanding this, it seems like 780 was definitely a step in the right direction. It identified those crimes that were classified as violent and kind of reduced them down to a misdemeanor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then this House Bill 1269 kind of takes that one step further and actually it makes it to where current inmates, they can actually take advantage of what 780 and 781, what the people voted on. Is that kind of correct?
That is right. It just backs up those individuals who happen to be charged before 780 went into effect. It's the same crime.
Right.
It's the same crime, but it now carries a misdemeanor sentence as opposed to a felony sentence.
Gotcha. Okay. Another bill I wanted to ask you about, House Bill 1373. And I think Senator Daniels was actually the author on this one, but it's something that we talked with her about a few weeks ago, but I want to get your thoughts on it as well because it's in the realm of criminal justice reform, and that's occupational licensing. Can you kind of walk us through what the significance is here and how it plays into the criminal justice reform?
That's a great bill, and that's a common sense bill. So currently, if if an offender, if an ex-convict, so they served their sentence, but they've got a felony on their record, any kind of state license that they're required to perform certain occupations, whether it's electrician or a hairdresser or insurance agent, whatever requires a state license, those felonies, those occupations are off limits to them. They can't do it because they've got that felony on their record. So with this bill, it allows those, and they have to be nonviolent, it allows those nonviolent offenders to be able to apply for a license. It's got to be in an area different than what their offense was, what they served time for, but it opens up all those career paths to those individuals. So I think our intent is to make those people tax-paying citizens and contributing citizens. So that's, like I said, it's a common sense thing. So it's a great bill.
It definitely seems that way. And what I really liked about this is it seems to be a way where when people get out or they've been in prison for a certain time, they a lot of times have really a hard time reintegrating into society and finding where they fit in and what they can do to stay out of troublesome situations. This seems like a bill that will really kind of remove that barrier and help them to reintegrate into society.
Absolutely,
is that right?
It opens up lots of options for them, but it's a pro-business bill too. We've got occupations that have a shortage right now. So if we can get these folks some training, make them eligible for some of these programs, and it's a win-win.
Let's go, absolutely. So one other bill there that I wanted to ask you about, I'm not sure if you were the author on it or not, but it's a House Bill 2670, which is the Pay for Success bill. Can you kind of walk us through what exactly this does and how it fits into the criminal justice
I'm glad to. Pay for Success, that's geared towards people who are either already in the prison system or they're have been charged with certain things. So this is to allow state agencies to set up public-private partnerships with groups that offer rehabilitation services or diversion programs or those sorts of things. So it's Pay for Success, but it also pay for performance. So they have to meet certain criteria, certain benchmarks are established in this bill. So before those people get paid, before those companies get paid for their services, they have to show that they've done what they were going to do by contract. So that's a win-win. So it's going to provide some mental health services, some rehabilitation services to people that really need that. So it's providing help for them, but also the state doesn't pay unless the programs are effective.
Love that, absolutely. So Senator Thompson had a similar bill. I think it was Senate Bill 210 or somewhere around there, which was also a Pay for Success bill. And one thing he mentioned that he really liked about it was one of the examples that Pay for Success used was this women in recovery system. I believe it was up in Tulsa, but it helped these ladies to, to help them to reintegrate into society, but also teach them, get involved in a program that allowed them to not get back into certain levels of trouble. Is that kind of the purpose behind it?
It's a great program, and that's an example of a program that's it's got proven success. It's got a great record. So, and I think we've done some things in the budget to allow more funding for that particular program, but also other programs similar to that. Maybe a similar program for men, but the Women in Recovery program in Tulsa, they've had great outcomes. So that's something that we do need to build on.
Gotcha. And you mentioned at the budget, there's definitely some key line item, specifics in there that really focus on more diversion programs. Can you kind of speak on the significance of having more diversion programs to help people out from even getting into these situations in the first place?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in prison, a lot of the people that are in prison aren't necessarily people, and maybe you've heard this, but people that we're afraid of. They need to be in prison. The people that just messed up, they did something stupid, or they have an addiction, or some other sort of issue that can be treated. That's where we can find some real results. So those people need some help. So we have done some things in the budget to allow for funding for diversion programs to get those folks some help. So that's important. I'm glad we're in a budget year where we can do that.
I love that, absolutely. Well, Senator, thank you so much for, taking the time to just sit with us, explain this extremely important topic, especially here in Oklahoma. You mentioned that inmate count is a real issue for Oklahoma, and that criminal justice reform is one of the tools that we're going to be able to use to really address this situation. So I want to thank you, first of all, for really focusing on that and working so hard on that within the legislature.
I'm glad to do it. We have made a lot of strides, but there's a lot more to do. We've got some ideas that we're carrying forward to the next session that are going to be very impactful on the bed count. So there's lots that's been done, but there's lots more to do. So we want to continue to build on that momentum.
That's perfect right there. Perfect in note right there. Before we sign off, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's good. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. This is an area that It's very important. I think the people of Oklahoma have spoken several times,
Yes.
whether it's on the 780 vote or other things, that this is an area they want to see some improvement on. Other states have done it,
Yep.
so there's no reason that we can't as well.
Love that, absolutely. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again, Senator Jech, for taking the time to walk us through that. I hope you've been able to learn a little bit about just criminal justice reform, everything that Senator Jech's been able to do to really further this cause, and how important of an issue it is for Oklahomans. So if you do have any questions, feel free to comment down below this video or shoot us an email, and we'll be sure to address any questions that you got from there. So, Senator Jech, anything else?
That's good.
Awesome. Let's go. Hey guys, thank you again, and I guess we will see you soon with another update. Bye guys.